Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned in to the JMOR Tech Talk Show, and we'll be starting momentarily. This is the place to ask those questions about PCs, technology, challenges with your iPhone, perhaps pairing it to your car, or maybe those smart devices that are supposed to make life easier at home or in the office, but just don't seem to. And now, please help me welcome the CEO and founder of the JMOR Connection Incorporated and the star of tonight's show, Mr. John C. Morley. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. I'm so happy that you've decided to tune in tonight. We have a great show planned for you. If you have questions during the show, you can call us if you are listening between 9 p.m. and 9:57 p.m. on Thursday nights, right here on the Starcom Radio Network. Just pick up your phone, cell phone, or house phone and call us at 973-826-0981. That's 973-826-0981, and we will take your call on the air. So tonight, we've been getting lots of different questions come up this week, and I was trying to come up with a show that I thought would make a lot of sense, because I try to come up with topics that are going to be beneficial for everyone. And I think tonight I have a really good one. And that's about how to use the resources on your computer. Some of the things you may not even be familiar with, such as the performance monitor and things like that, and do some analysis. So all I want you to do is, if you were to go to the Start menu, you basically can just click on the Start, the little flag, or you can press the Start button, and you can start typing Control, okay? Or you can just type Administrative Tools. And once you get that, just go ahead and click on that, and you will see that it brings you into Control Panel, System and Security, Administrative Tools. Now, if you didn't like doing that, you could have just went to your Control Panel, and the way I know a lot of you like to do it is you like to just click on the cog, the setting cog, okay, and then you're actually able to go in that way as well. So you can click on where it says System, and then you can drill down that way. But the other way to do it, which is even easier, is you can go right to your Control Panel by just going right to your Control Panel. Some of you have links to those on your menu, and then you go to where it says System and Security, or of course at the top you could type in ADMIN. That will bring you there as well. So I can click on System and Security. And when I go to System and Security, you will see that you have all the information there about security, maintenance, things of that nature. But one thing that you'll notice, and you will not see directly there, is you will not see something there that actually says Administrative Tools. You need to go and type Administrative Tools, and then you will find it. Okay, the way I showed you in the beginning, I think, was a lot easier for everyone. Again, you just go click on the Start or hit the little flag button on your computer, the Microsoft flag there, and you can just start typing in either ADMIN, or you can type in Control, and that will also bring up the list. You can do it that way. So going through Control Panel, or the easy way is just to go ahead and just type in Admin, and you will go ahead and you will get the Administrative Tools, which is under Control Panel. So in the Administrative Tools, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go through every one of them, but I am going to pick a few out that I think are kind of important. So what's in here? We have Component Services, we have Computer Management, we have Defrag and Optimize Drives, we have Disk Cleanup, we have Event Viewer, we have the iSCSI Initiator, we have the Local Security Policy, we have ODBC for 32-bit, ODBC for 64-bit, we have Performance Monitor, we have Print Management, we have Resource Monitor, we have Services, we have System Configuration, we have System Information, we have Task Scheduler, we have Windows Firewall with Advanced Security, and we have Windows Memory Diagnostic. So the first thing I want to talk about is something called the Windows Memory Diagnostic. So the Windows Memory Diagnostic is actually built right into Windows. You can actually click right on it. And when you click on that, it's going to say to you, do you want to check your computer for memory problems? So you either check for problems the next time I start my computer, or you can restart now and check for problems. Okay? So the thing is, it has to actually run outside of Windows. It's actually a program that runs in the DOS or the command shell. So that's why It does have to run, and it runs without Windows running, so it's kind of like a manager that actually boots into a certain program before Windows actually loads. So that's pretty cool. The second thing, because a lot of times people have problems, and they're not really sure if their memory is bad or not. So now you can actually know that your memory is bad by running that little free test. The next thing I want to talk about is something called the defragment and optimized drive. So just go ahead and double-click on that, third one down, and you will see that you have a little thing that says you can optimize your drives to help your computer run more efficiently, or analyze them to find out if they need to be optimized. So Windows C right now, if I go ahead and I click on where it says Analyze, which just takes a couple seconds, it's really, really fast, and it says that my C drive is actually 1% fragmented. Now, since we are using this computer to broadcast, we're not going to attempt to make any changes to the files while we're broadcasting, because that could have adverse effects and possibly disconnect us. Then we have another, so it actually told me what I've got there. I've got my C drive, and in my case I have the Q drive, which is a recovery drive. And then I have another drive over here, and I can analyze that one if I'd like. And then it has another one at the bottom. Now, basically, these might have been other drives that might have been used. Like, for example, there's a system drive, there's a volume drive. But the most important one you're going to use is the top one. So, like, there's certain parts of the hard disk that it'll format for faster loading. And the system _DRV is another area of the system where it allows, and again, those are not fragmented on my system at all. So right now, it says scheduled optimization. Drives are being optimized automatically. The frequency is every week. And it looks like they are being run on a schedule, which is recommended weekly. And then I have here, notify me if 3 consecutive scheduled runs are missed. When I click on choose, I've selected all of them, and then they automatically will run through that. And I'll show you where they can get scheduled just a little bit later. So we have optimize, and optimize would actually run the option right now. So if you have never run it, that's actually where you can go to run the particular option. Now, in systems before Windows 10, this is pretty important to note, because on a lot of the systems, you didn't have the ability. Back in the XP days, you actually didn't have the ability to schedule it automatically. You had to manually go in and do it. But now it's already built in, so you don't have to actually do anything to schedule it. But again, in Windows 10, you can change the default, I'll call it the default defrag time, basically. And the default, basically the default defrag time is set up in your system. And I can show you where that is really easy. There's actually what we call a maintenance window. And the maintenance window is, if you go to the start menu and you just type in change right down there. And you can actually just type in the word active. Probably easier. And then you just you can change your active hours. So if that does not pop up for you for whatever reason, just go ahead and type the word update. Okay? Click on check for updates. Then you'll go to where it says change active hours, and there's where you can actually change it. So again, your active hours, so your active hours on Windows 10 are where it's not going to do anything. Okay? And your inactive hours is when it would do maintenance. Okay, so pretty straightforward. They made this easy so everybody would understand, what would happen. But they have something called active hours, and I do encourage you to set that up, because that's when your maintenance window actually will run. So pretty easy and pretty simple. But it's really important that you do have that enabled and you don't have it disabled, because if you have it disabled, well, then that's going to not maintain your computer. So what do I mean by defrag and optimize? Okay, I'm not going to bore you with too much detail here, but just like anytime you use a filing cabinet, let's take a regular filing cabinet that you'd file papers in, A through Z, or another way if you're using some other type of special filing system with numbers and etc., or letters or maybe it's like letters first and then numbers. Well, usually they're done by last names, first names, client name, etc., company name. And what happens if you take a lot of folders out? Well, when you take stuff out of folders, and you don't necessarily throw the folders out, so you have spots in your cabinet that have to actually be kind of compressed. So you have to, we don't really think of it as defragging, but you have to take the folders out, and either you have to delete and recycle them, or you have to take them out of that area so that you can have more space. So that's exactly what defrag does. Defrag actually looks at your hard drive, and there's something called contiguous disk space. So we want contiguous disk space because if we didn't have that, what would happen is the computer would actually be a lot slower. For example, again, not to bore you, but when we store a file, we can actually store the file in different parts of the hard drive because there's actually a table of contents if you want to think of it. You might have heard of this as the file allocation table, and the file allocation table, in a very purest sense, keeps track of where files start and end and where they are on the disk, etc., kind of like markers. So it tells it starts at this position, ends at this position, and then that position tells the next marker where the next one's going to be on what track, etc. So pretty easy, but what happens is after you delete many files, especially from the recycle bin, etc., your computer actually starts to get out of shape. And by that I mean that it starts to not have as much contiguous space. Now mine only was 1% fragmented. That's pretty good because my defrag probably just ran not too long ago. Underneath that we have a utility called disk cleanup, and you can actually select the drive you want to clean up. And if I click on that letter and I say the word, let's say if I said OK, what will happen is it will literally run disk cleanup. It'll calculate how much space that I'll be able to free on Windows C. So again, you don't have to go to your C drive and do disk cleanup through tools, because I know the way a lot of you used to do it is you used to go to your PC. And you might have noticed, ladies and gentlemen, that in Windows 10 we actually don't have a My Computer. We have something called a This PC. That actually kind of replaced My Computer, if you will, for many of you that were familiar with that. So if I click on This PC, kind of brings up the File Explorer, and if I right-click on the drive that I want and I go to Properties, I can also go into Properties and I can go to General, and then I click on Disk Cleanup. And before I do that, I can see the use space, the amount of free space, and I can see the capacity, and then I see a nice little circle with mine indicating that half of my drive is free and the other half is used. So again, you can get to things multiple ways. And then over here, when it comes up with that, it has basically it says your disk cleanup can free up 226 megabytes. So I can go ahead and check all the files that I want to check there, which it's recommending. In my case, it has selected things like recycle bin, temporary files, thumbnails, downloaded program files, okay, temporary internet files. And it says the total amount of disk space you gain would be 100 megabytes. I also can choose to clean up my clean up system files. Okay, so system files can also be cleaned up. Again, making things very, very easy and very, very simple. But the whole point is that if you automate these processes, then you don't have to run these yourself. But most people don't ever use these utilities, but that's why I'm happy in Windows 10 that they actually have them built in for you. And they've kind of taken care of all that maintenance work that you used to have to spend some time to do. And if you didn't do it, well, then your computer wasn't going to run that efficiently. So the next thing I want to drop down to under the disk cleanup, and it's still calculating my space there. I clicked on it, and it's just telling me scanning. Right now it's scanning the Windows Update Cleanup. So there was actually a button I checked called to clean up Windows files. When I did that, it actually scanned a little further, not just my files on my computer, but also my Windows files. So that's a separate area. If I click that, and it will show me in just a matter of seconds, and it will tell me how many files that I can actually save. And in my case, by me doing the system files and the rest of my files, I'm actually going to be able to save, and this is pretty cool, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be able to save 300, and it looks like it's going to keep going up here, so I keep checking more boxes. and I went up all the way up to 528 megs. That's pretty amazing, okay? Pretty amazing, okay? I'm going to go ahead and say okay. Are you sure you want to do this? It'll take a couple seconds, and it will go ahead and clean your drive. So, pretty easy, pretty simple. I'm going to jump over to Task Scheduler right now, which is about the third from the bottom. And if you go to Task Scheduler, you're going to see that you have a couple things here. One says Task Schedule Local, which is the only thing we care about. And then under Task Schedule Local, you actually have several different, I'm going to call them hives. That's what we usually refer to files and folders. We think of it as a hive type structure. So because everything kind of goes from the top and then it goes down to the bottom to other levels. And nesting is really, it's a nesting a file structure. So we have our schedule. The first thing we have in here is my task schedule library. And it tells me that, for example, Adobe is set to run ready, has on certain triggers, when certain things happen, it will go ahead and it will run. So when I click on the Adobe and I look on triggers, it says at log on, and then daily at 4 p.m. it checks to see if there is an Adobe update. Same thing for my Flash Flyer update. Same thing. It's checking right now every day at 7:30 p.m. If you didn't want it to check at that time and you wanted to change that time, not a problem. Just go in here and just click on the edit button. Maybe 7:30 you're still working, so I'm going to change mine to be, 11 p.m. at night, and I'm going to go ahead and say okay. All right, and now I've just affected that. I have some other things on here, such as I have another thing on here called my disk update. All right, and the disk update on Workstation Unlock. So I know what some of you are asking. Well, what is the disk update utility? And that's a good question. The disk update utility in Windows 10 is a utility that was put there for basically, if you will, another maintenance. It's to upgrade the PC. A lot of times, different versions of Windows 10. So it's checking to see if there is another version of Windows 10 that it can check. So it checks that, and my computer is actually checking that. It looks like it's checking that every time the workstation is unlocked. It's just checking. It's just a disk update. It's used to, like I said, to check for different updates, and it checks that pretty frequently. So then we have other thing. I have some other things on here. Like there's some other programs on here, such as I have something called the G2M update. And I know what you're saying. What is the G2M update? And I'm not going to go through all these with you because there are quite a few updates on here. So the G2M update is it can sometimes cause people to have all kinds of issues, such as faults with memory and applications and things of that nature. So the G2M update can cause some problems. And it basically links into, sometimes it's used with the GoToMeeting. It doesn't actually, it's more not like you hosting it yourself. It's more of sometimes a problem happens with GoToMeeting. Sometimes you have to uninstall GoToMeeting because something didn't go right, but it's the updater for the GoToMeeting program. So make sure you have the latest version on there. That's all that is. So then we have some things like you might have a Google update task. So this keeps Google software up to date. If the task is disabled, your Google software will not be kept up to date. Okay, so that's what that is. I have some other, I'm going to scroll down here. So then I have an ISM update. The ISM update basically helps you keep your system up to date. And basically keeps things up to date with the Intel management system. So that's what that is. So if there's new processor updates or anything using the Intel chipset, it's going to check for that. We also have on here something called Knock Labs, and that's just some special software I have on there. So there's some updates for that. So again, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you kind of get the idea. So that's the task scheduler. then that's the general task schedule. Then if I go to Apple, there's also an Apple software update, okay? And the Apple software update does exactly what you'd expect it to do. It checks if there's any Apple updates. So Intel, so that's another one here, and then there's specific ones on Intel. Then if I go in, like let's say I wanted to go into, let's say, Office, right now under the Office platform, there's nothing under that directly, but if I go under Microsoft right now, I can see that, okay, Microsoft actually has below it Office, and if I click on Office, there are several Office tasks that it goes in and runs as well. So again, I want to just give you kind of like an overview of how this works, and it really is pretty cool. So under the Windows tab, again, I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but we have all kinds of different updates, all kinds of different, I should say, services that get triggered. So there's actually one in here for our system. Our system, we have like a system maintenance, so that'll run. We have one for our task manager. We have one for time zone. We have run to. So everything's run in the basic, what they call that maintenance window. That's why we're talking about that, and those had been scheduled for us. The Windows Update has one. Again, there's hundreds in here, but I just wanted to explain this to you. Just don't go and delete something in here, because then you're going to wonder why something's not working, because it's not updating and you haven't been checking it, and the system is actually should be checking it, but it's not going to because you disabled something. All right. So that is a great utility. Again, I'm just kind of going through these utilities with you. That's the task schedule. But maybe if you install the backup program and you wanted to, maybe you wrote a backup script and you wanted to schedule it. Now, some backup programs actually have their own scheduler. Some of the free ones don't, so you would use Task Schedule. But a lot of the, even some of the professional backup programs that you buy that you have to pay for, they actually will schedule with Task Scheduler, just to make it a little bit easier. And then there are some that actually won't, and that's because they have their own little thing on the taskbar where the at the very bottom there, where it shows you the different programs that are running. It'll tell you when the next scheduled task is going to happen. So we're going to jump into another one, which is called Event Viewer. So if you're having any problems with your computer, you're probably going to be directed to go to the Event Viewer. This is where, think of it like a place where Windows puts its logs, okay? And you have a chance to kind of get in there and actually read and see what's going on. So we have something here called Custom Views, okay? Then we have something here called Windows Logs. I'm going to go into Windows Logs. That's probably the one that's most important. And I'm going to click on the little arrow to the right, and then you're going to see it'll open up. And it'll explode to Application, Security, Setup, and System. So I'm going to go to where it says Application right now. And right now I can see, and I can make my box bigger if I'd like to, and I can see exactly what's going on. I can see if there's any kind of problem, what have you. And if there is a problem, then I can go ahead and resolve it. Maybe it's a driver update. You should always have information on there, but you shouldn't have any red marks, so that's really important. You can also right-click on this, and you can clear the log. If you clear the log, I do recommend saving it first, because once you clear it, it's gone. Now, there's another one here called Security. So Security basically will tell you certain things when they happened, such as, it'll tell you information. For example, like they can be set for different levels. This particular one that I'm looking at right now is just this one was just telling me that this was a built-in backup operator. So again, this is just right now they're just showing information. We can log more detail if we want. When we look at the actual information, it tells us basically the subject. It tells me security, the object. It tells me the process information. It tells us if the policy was changed. So it gives us quite a bit of information. And the event ID has a number next to it so we can actually see. So sometimes one event, ladies and gentlemen, will actually trigger more, let's say, notifications or information entries to be written to the log, and now we're in security here because let's say I have auditing enabled, but I won't go into auditing right now. Under setup, I can click on that, and I can, again, I'm getting information. I can expand the date and see where they are, the time, so you can tell exactly what's going on. Again, information, if you click on the bottom, it'll tell you exactly what's happening. A lot of times it'll tell you, if it's a Microsoft, it'll tell you like KB, like this one was KB3213986. It'll tell you if there was an issue, if they had to update an agent on the computer, etc. There's another one here called System, and System does things, again, you should only see information in System. You should not have any red marks. If you have red marks in there, there may be some services that are not running, or there may be a problem. But just because you have a red mark, I don't want you to think that you have a virus or anything like that, because there may just be some things that are just not configured on your particular computer, and that's perfectly fine, absolutely fine. Then we have another one here called forward events. I don't have any right now on mine. That's where that would show up. Applications and applications logs. So now I have different pieces of hardware. So I can click on hardware events, and I can see exactly. I could go to different things like Internet Explorer. There's one for key management. I can go under Microsoft, and then I have an app V, which you're probably familiar with that with Hyper. And then I have something here called user experience, and then the user experience is actually user experience virtualization. And it would show me any particular logs in that area. Were there any Microsoft alerts, Office alerts? And again, I can see the last Office alert was actually at 7:24 a.m., and it was just information, and it just asked me, do I want to save my changes? Okay? That's pretty much all it is. But Microsoft does log everything, especially Windows 10, pretty much by default. Windows PowerShell. Windows PowerShell is another one where I can see certain information. It'll tell me, for example, if it was stopped, if something happened. I have a general, and then I always have a detail tab. So the detail tab is actually going to give me the top. I have system, which I can click on that, and I can get like what the provider was, the keywords, what the event data was, okay? And then I can actually get the whole event data, and I can dig into that deeper. I even have the ability to do XML view, which is really handy, especially if you have an XML viewer. You can just save these out, and that's really handy. We have another one here for subscriptions, and it says here to work with subscriptions, the Windows Event Collector must be running and configured. Right now, the Windows Event is not running. I'm going to leave that off. But again, certain things have to be configured for certain things to work. So if you have one, like for example, if there was an error and you clicked on the error, it'll give you as much information as you want, pretty much to get you some information. But then if you go to the detail view, you're going to get a lot more information. You're going to get the system. You're going to get you'll get what the error is. You'll get the channel that caused it. If it was application, you'll get the event data. You will get the DLL that caused the problem. In some cases, you'll even get the memory address. You'll get the system time broken down pretty much right into the second. In addition to that, you will also have the ability to get what they call the event data. The event data, again, gives you all the where the memory problem happened, etc., or the file problem. The system gives you the event ID, it gives you the channel, and it gives you the name of the computer. So again, that's really handy. A lot of people go in here and they forget about the details. So there's a lot of information that you can get from the event viewer, especially if you have auditing enabled. You can go right into the event viewer. Now, if you forget how to get to the event viewer, no problem. All you have to do is click on the start button and just start typing EV, and now you're into event viewer. Very easy, very, very simple. So right now under custom views, I just have two, one server and the other one says administrative events. These are things like critical errors and warning events from all administrative logs. So I'll click on that, and right now I have none that are going to cause me a problem. If I wanted to create another, I actually can have other, I could create another custom view if I wanted to, basically specifying the critical, the warning, the verbose from the log, Windows log. And again, I can drill down exactly to what I want to pull in there, XML. So this is very handy. Maybe you're managing a network, and maybe you're very concerned about some new devices that were installed, and you want to monitor those, pretty profusely. So you can go ahead and set something up here so you don't have to just dive into them. You can literally see exactly what they're doing. Even if they're not critical data, you want to make sure things are working correctly. You can go ahead and create a custom view. So that is the event viewer. The event viewer is a really useful and very, very powerful tool. And it looks like Brian is giving me that eye that it's time for us to go to a quick break. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, you stay right where you are, and we'll be right back after this quick break. Computers always slow at your home or office. Pop-ups always appearing. Setting up smart devices like your iPhone, thermostats, downloading apps, and much more. Mention code JRC001 and receive a PC tweak for only $49.99. New clients only, please. Visit JMOR.com now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the JMOR Tech Talk Show. So if you just joined us and you'd like to give us a call, you can call us now. It's between 9 p.m. and 9:57 p.m. Thursday nights on the Starcom Radio Network. 973-826-0981. That's 973-826-0981. So again, if you're just joining us and wondering what we're talking about, well, that's a great question. Today, I'm actually talking about some of the useful tools that are under the hood of Microsoft Windows 2010, and they've actually been with us in a few other OS versions as well. You actually see some of these tools in Server and other operating systems, as I mentioned to you, from Microsoft's auspices. So we just talked about the event viewer. We talked about the defragmenter, how that works, optimizing the drives. We talked about the fact that your disk drive actually kind of gets out of shape, if you will, kind of like us. If we don't exercise, we get out of shape. No pun intended. But in the computer gets out of shape, and what I mean by that is it's not able to be as efficient. Same thing like us. If we don't exercise and we don't eat the right foods, well, we can't be very efficient and stuff like that. Well, it's a little different with the computer. It just doesn't know where to find things because it has not enough room. Yeah, that's the same thing with us, right? We don't have enough room to do so. Okay, well, anyway. So the event viewer, we talked about the defragmenter, we talked about the disk cleanup, which gets rid of those temp files and stuff like that. We talked about the event viewer. We talked about how you can customize views. We talked about how there's views for just about anything, and you can even go in and look at some of the predefined views, which are already set up for you in the event viewer, which is really cool, called server roles and administrative events. Really easy, really, really simple. So, again, the reason I'm doing this is a lot of people have had questions about, how do you do certain things? Where do you find certain information? And the thing about the event viewer is most people go in there like, oh, they forget they can click this whole other tab called detail, and then they can expand they can actually expand the area. And again, remember when I said to you, when you actually go in there and you go ahead and you look at, for example, like whatever it is you're looking at, like right now I'm looking at the security log, and I go in there, I can actually click and I go to details, and I have something that says system, which gives me the name, the GUID, which is what's causing the action to happen, the activity ID correlation, the target name, what group I'm with, the name, the subject domain name if there is, or if there's a work group, and then I also, if I'd like, can minimize. I can minimize the provider, minimize system, and just look at event data, or just look at the system itself, or just look at event data, which gives me the target username in this case, the domain. Target SID, target user security ID, subject the user name of the computer, the subject domain name, and the subject login ID, the caller process, the caller process name. So again, very, very useful information right at your fingertips. Really handy if you want to be able to troubleshoot something, maybe install the program and you're wondering, hey, why is it not working properly? Well, just come over here and check it out. I think you're going to find it really interesting and pretty easy to use. So next thing I want to tackle is something that's pretty important. But before I tackle the performance viewer and the resource monitor, I'd like to just explain a little bit about the system information. So if you click on that, you're going to get something that says System Information. And when you click on System Information, on the very right of your screen, you're actually going to be able to get the operating system, the version. You're going to get lots of data here, lots of information. Hyper-V, if Hyper-V monitor is enabled, if hyper-virtualization is enabled, things of that nature. If data execution protection is enabled. And then you have this little tree over here. So mine starts with System Summary. If I click on Hardware Resources, and I click on, let's say, Conflict Sharing, it'll take a second, it'll refresh, and it will tell me if there's any conflict or sharing problems. It might just take a second. But then again, it looks like everything is good. Shows me my resource. Shows me exactly what's happening, what's going on. I can look at DMA. Now, you remember in Windows, since we went to the 64-bit world, we really didn't use the DMAs. We kind of changed the way we handle DMA, and it's mostly used for a couple things. But you remember how we used to use IRQs? Well, now we do it a little bit differently. The software actually controls the direct memory address, which is becoming more popular and a little more flexible for developers. There's something here called forced hardware. Again, I'm not going to go through all the options with you, but if there was any forced hardware, you'd see it there. I/O just shows me the resource at the left, and on the right, the device, and then, of course, it shows me the PC status. Any IRQs in use? I'll click on that, and it will show me my IRQs all the way from 0 all the way up to 511. If you wanted to know, for example, by default, we know for many, many years that IRQ 8 is our CMOS or real-time clock, and our mouse is always IRQ 12. I'm not sure if many of you remember back then when you had a dial-up modem and you actually hooked up a mouse, and one of two things happened. When you went to hook up that modem, either the modem did not work, or it worked and it just never connected, or a third thing happened. Your modem worked, but then your mouse just totally locked up. That's known as an IRQ conflict. I'm sure many of you remember that, but thankfully with the Windows plug and play, plug and play, really, that has kind of gone away with the dodo bird. Memory, I can click on memory, and I can see all of my resources on my computer. I can see the Intel, I can see my system boards, so I can see exactly what memory is being accessed. I can even go to components, and let's say I wanted to know something about, I want to know something about my sound device. I can go right here, and it will tell me the name of the name, which mine happens to be Realtek High Definition Audio. The manufacturer is Realtek. Status is okay. The PNP for plug and play device has the ID, which is actually going to be in our registry. The driver it's using, it tells me the version number, ladies and gentlemen. The name, it's a USB audio device. Generic USB audio, the status, the driver. And so it's mentioning to me not just one, because I have multiple sound devices installed here. And then it also has for me one other device at the bottom, which I have some VACs. Then I can go to display. So really easily I can learn a lot about my system by coming right here, even more than I can get from the device manager. If you had infrared, you could click on infrared. Then we have input such as keyboard. Maybe I want to know what driver is my pointing device using. Now you can get that from device manager, yes, but you can get a lot of information that you can't get in device manager here. If you had a modem, which nobody has modems anymore, and then network, and you can look at, for example, the adapter. So this is really handy, really, really nice. It's really quick and dirty. If I want to look at my ports, if I want to look at what protocols in use, I can go ahead and look at that. I can look at, if I wasn't sure what my serial ports were, my parallel ports, I can look if I had that. My storage, I can click on my drives, and I immediately can be told what my drive is. Is it compressed? Yes or no? What's the file system? What serial number? So it tells me all my drives, not just my my hard disk, but also my CD-ROM and any other virtual drives that are there. So again, very easy. If I click on disks, then it tells me what disks I have. This can manufacture standard disk drivers. That tells you the model, so I know the model of my particular disk drive, and then it tells me it's a fixed hard disk. Tells me the disk partition, disk 0, which is my first drive, partition 0, and in my case this says 0, 1, 2, 3, and it shows them out and how they're laid out. So really easy. If I want to, I can actually minimize components, and I can go right to software environment, and here I can look at things like system drivers. Maybe I have a problem with a 3COM, or I have a problem modem. Maybe I have a problem with my APC, and I want to check my driver. I can do so many things here. And just pop around a lot easier than I probably can with the device manager. I'm not saying device manager is bad, especially when you want to update a driver, but this is a real quick and dirty way to pop around. The other nice thing about this, ladies and gentlemen, is guess what you can do? You can go to File, okay, and you can actually go to where it says Export, and you can export the whole thing as a text file. I think that's pretty cool. So we have the ability to do a lot of stuff, and then we also have a find box at the bottom. So maybe I was looking for sound and I didn't know where it was. I could just type in sound, and it would automatically search for me in just a couple seconds. It will show me where sound is. Or maybe there was something you were looking for, or wanting to know what memory something was occupying. You can very easily do that. Now, not only, and it did that, it pulled up my sound in like less than 30 seconds. Now, not only that, ladies and gentlemen, you can refresh, but you can also use system information to view a remote computer. I think that's really cool. Now, all these programs out there, you might be familiar with them. That you pay lots of money to monitor your network. I mean, there's lots of them out there, and some of them are quite expensive. And really, all they're doing is they're running the Windows utility, and that I just showed you, extrapolating the data, and then running their own queries on it, pretty much. So basically, software that monitors hardware. There's lots of them out there, and you're going to spend a lot of money. Anywhere from $1,500 to maybe $10,000 or more, depending on what you need. So again, just giving you, really just kind of giving you an overview of this, and just to kind of show you. So we've touched on a lot. There is another one here called System Configuration. If you didn't know that you could actually pull up, because some people don't know that if you go to the bar and you type in MS config or go to System Configuration, you can pull it up right here. That's actually what that does. And I'm not going to get into it too much, but that's where you can control like general boot, services, startup, tools. And you also, if you're trying to get into safe mode, here's one way you can put it right into safe mode. Under boot, just choose safe boot, and make sure whatever you do, you choose network, or you'll be cursing yourself out, or someone will be cursing you out because you're not going to have any connectivity to the network. And then when you're all done, you can come back in and you can go ahead and undo that. I know sometimes people find it hard to get into safe mode with Windows 10 because it is a little bit tricky. But not terrible. It's just a little bit different, I should say. You know, anytime something is different, I think people just, they don't like change, really. I think that's what it's about. Well, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you stay right where you are. We'll be right back after this break.
For IT services and data destruction, the JMOR connection should be your direction. Engineer technology to grow your business. Our custom solutions are at your service. JMOR should be your direction. The JMOR connection.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're just tuning in. You're listening to the JMOR Tech Talk Show right here on the Starcom Radio Network. You still have a few minutes to call us if you're calling between 9 p.m. at 9:57 p.m. and listening live on Thursday night on the Starcom Radio Network. You can call us at 973-826-0981. That's 973-826-0981. What are we doing tonight, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we're going under the hood with Windows 10 and showing you some of the utilities that have been around with some other previous operating systems. They haven't changed too much, but they have made some slight improvements. So we've talked about quite a few of them. We're going to go ahead and actually talk about another one. The one that I want to show you is something called a performance monitor. If you go ahead and double-click on performance monitor, it's going to go ahead, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to open up a screen for you. Pretty easy, pretty simple. And once that opens the screen for you, you can use the performance monitor to view performance data in real time or from a log. So you can create data collectors if you want. But right now, I can see the percentage of committed bytes in use. I can see the available megabytes, and this is in real time. Percentage physical disk. So I can get a lot of great data. But maybe I want to add something else. So I can click on performance monitor. I can click on the plus at the top. How about we look at the processor? Now, there are different things you can look at with the processor. You have the C1, the C2, the C3, the DPC, the idle time, the interrupt time, the privilege time, and the processor time. You've got the user time, the C1 transitions per second, C2 transitions per second, the CP3 transitions per second, the DPC rate, the DPCS cubed per sec, and the interrupt sec. So let's just talk about the first couple because there's a lot there, all right? So C1 is going to be the operating state. The CPU is fully turned on. The C1E is the halt state, okay? The C1E is the enhanced halt state. Now, C1E is only for 40, 60, 84 and above, DX4 and above, and C1E is all socket 7 for all socket 775s. So that wouldn't be applicable to us. So because we have an i7. So now the C2 is the stop grant. That stops the CPU's main internal clock via hardware, and the APICs, they keep it running at full speeds. So I know what you're probably going to say to me, John. What the heck is it? What is? I know I read your mind. What is an APIC? Advanced Programmable Interrupt Controller. That's pretty much what that is. Okay, pretty straightforward. We also have the C3, the sleep, stops all CPU internal clocks. We have the C4, and then we have the C4E, and we have the C4. Well, there's different ones. We have a C6. So what I'm going to do right now, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose the C3. I think that's probably the best one. I'm going to choose the C3. Let's choose the C2 time, actually. Percentage C2 time. I'm going to add it to the chart. And I'm also going to choose the idle time and add that to the chart and say OK. And if I look at my screen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm actually going to get a nice picture here. The red is showing my processor time. Okay. The next color down, which happens to be, I'm going to change the color because that one was already red. I'm going to make that blue. And the 1 is actually showing my C2 time. And remember from what I just said, the C2 is the CPU's internal external clock via hardware, okay? And then the C3, okay, that's going to be my idle time, how much is idle. So I actually can see my idle time, and it's a little bit, but it's not much. Now, if I wanted to, I also could come in here, ladies and gentlemen, and I could choose to do it by processor, by remote access service, by paging file. Let's go ahead and do it for the paging file. And let's do it by usage. I'm going to add that to my chart. Okay. And I'll come down here and I'm going to change my color here just so I can. It was yellow. I'm going to make it, I don't know, I'll make it, I think I'm going to make it gold here. And we'll give it a second. And the percentage usage on this is not, it's not terribly high. I'm actually going to get rid of that, and I am going to just remove that one particular counter from the list. So we'll hide this. I'm going to go ahead and clear that one counter there. And now I'll go ahead and I'll add another one. So to delete it, you just go ahead and hover over it, select it, and just click X, and then it's gone. I'm going to go ahead and do another one. I'm going to go to the paging file. The paging file, let's go to, Oh, let's go to the memory. Going to go to memory. We're going to go to the paging file. I'll go right here, per process. So paging file. I'm going to go to per processor. Okay, we have network cycles. We have physical network interface. We have physical disk access. We have peer. So we have physical disk. We have power meter. Then we have print queue. We have process. We have processor. RAS. We have remote. We have search. We have server. Okay. The one that I really want to pull up for you right now, when we think about, we think about the actual usage, and we're going to go to, if we look at usage peak, okay, and I add usage peak, I can add that to my file, and I can see just how that works, and I can see the ones with dashes. I can also, ladies and gentlemen, I can actually add, if I wanted to see my disk accesses. So maybe I want to see my process, but then I'd really like to see how much disk is being accessed. I can do it by database. So again, it's always going to be, remember, it's always going to be a process. That's how it works. So you just find the one that you want to find. There's like thousands in here. I'll go to physical disk, and I'll go to percentage of write time. This is going to be really cool. Okay, add that, and now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to change this so we can see it. And I should see that in a second here. And there it is. I can see the percentage of my time. All right. So again, this is called the performance monitor. Really, really handy. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to get out of here, and I want to show you. We only have a little more time left. Where does the time go, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to show you a resource monitor. So I know this may seem a little confusing, and I'm sorry about that. So the question I know I just got here in the chat is, if somebody was just asking me, what is the difference between performance monitor, okay, and resource monitor in Windows? Okay, and that's actually a very, very good question. So difference is the resource monitor is one that's a performance monitor. It's a program that assesses reports based on various information. So the difference in short is performance monitor, resource monitor. The performance monitor is a program that assesses and reports information about various computer resources, okay, while resource monitor is a tool by which you can monitor the usage of your CPU and other type of resources. So again, the difference, performance monitor and resource monitor are their performance monitor utilities. They're programs that assess and report information about various computer resources and devices, while resource monitor is a tool by which you can monitor the uses of your CPU, and through the resources, you can monitor your RAM and other things like that. So network usage or any other program that's not working properly, you can immediately see it. So we're going to go right into the. So we're in the resource monitor right now, and there is a basic lay there. Right now, I can see my overview. I can go to CPU, and I can see exactly what's happening. I can go to network, and I can see exactly what's going on there. I can go to memory, and I can see immediately what's happening on my memory. So again, the nice thing about it is that it's all ready for you. Now, you can always go here, and you can always come back. So you have processes, and then you also have something called services. So you have services as well. You also have something that's going to show disk right out of the box. So again, very, very, very handy. The thing I want to let you know is that the resource monitor is something that's basically allowing you to basically do, check what's going on in the system. Well, the other one is one that you more can build, if that makes a little sense. So resource monitor is great, but it's one that you're actually going to be, you can control what you have, but everything's listed there. Well, the other one is a little more granular. You can do a lot more. The resource monitor is like if something's wrong with your system, you can check it out really easy and really fast. So that's called the resource monitor. If you wanted to get to the resource monitor, you could just type in RES, and guess what would happen, ladies and gentlemen? It would pull up the resource monitor for you. Again, really, really easy, really, really simple. I know we're almost out of time, but we have a couple minutes left, and I want to share something called services. If you go to services, if someone ever tells you, or a technician tells you need to stop a service or stop a database service, this is where you're going to go. Maybe you need to stop a database service like SQL. You'd come right in here. You could double-click on it and say stop, or you could right-click on it and then you could say stop. Remember that when you go in there, you actually have stop, you have pause, you have start, and then you have resume, and you have startup type automatic, which means it'll start up automatically, and automatic delayed means it's not going to start up until everything else in Windows has started, so there's a little bit of a delay. Then you have manual, where you have to manually start it, and then you have disabled. Okay, automatic will start basically when it on the prompt when it's requested. So, and then automatic delayed is there's a little bit of a delay before it actually starts. So it finishes loading other programs first, and then it actually goes through. So I hope tonight has been an educational program for everyone. I hope you found it to be very, very useful. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And I'll look forward to seeing you next Thursday night, right here, 9 p.m. on the Starcom Radio Network. Have a good one, everyone.
From all of us at the JMOR Connection Incorporated, we'd like to thank you for listening and invite you to join us again next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Be sure to tell your friends, colleagues, and associates about the JMOR Tech Talk Show. We're here every Thursday night on the Starcom Radio Network at 9 p.m. Eastern. If you missed any of our shows, you can just walk on over to JMOR.com, click on social, and then under JMOR Radio, just click on previously recorded episodes. We'll see you next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Have a great week.